Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Frankie's Open Mic here on Frankie's Podcast Network. I'm your host and founder of Frankie's Podcast Network, Haleigh Overseth. I'm joined today by Murray Angel, Murray Jackson, founder of Love Reiki, Master Reiki Energy Healer, and possibly the most grateful and present human I have ever known in my incarnation as this avatar, Haleigh Overseth. Hello, Murray Angel.
Hi, Haley. Oh, what an introduction. Thank you so much. You definitely have my inner child, forthright and present, in the moment and ready to mingle. How are you?
I'm so excited for us to be here. I feel like there's been a lot in both of our human linear timelines that have led us to this point. So we're going to do our best to ease into the conversation. We want to create a nice, comfortable container here for the both of us because that's part of what I do. That's part of my mission is to help people have a safe space to be their authentic and fullest selves. And I know that's part of your mission as well.
It is, as I've come to know. It's funny when you use the word mission, I wonder where it derives from.
Well, we know that my mission mostly, ostensibly, at my core, is to enjoy this human experience, to have fun and have a good time. And I know that unlike most humans, you have a unique capacity to enjoy all of this human experience, even when it is, shall we say, less than preferred or less than easy. It is something that is very unique about you, Murray Angel. Maybe we can start there. Where does this come from? This ease that you have in remaining in the present moment?
It's a great question, Haley, and I appreciate this being our starting point. The word mission often reminds me of the opposing effect, which is the journey. We don't set out on something unless it is a journey, which means that to be on a journey means that you're not alone. How are you not alone on this journey? Very simply, you have 5 senses that are known to you here and now, and there is 3 others that we unconsciously work with of time, space, and motion. Through these characteristics at a young age, I discovered that I'm different. Through these sensories, I discovered that I need to be more preserved, more withheld, and more delicate with the way that I show up moment to moment. Through the earlier stages of growth, I was given the gift to experience a contrast of light, as you put it, that is less attractive and less appreciated in this greater experience. Now, at first, that sucked.
And that's, you know what? Listen, it's valid to say that. Thank you for your candor. I do appreciate that you would just come out and say it. But again,
Everybody knows being human, it's catalytic. And what we absorb through this experience of being to become has effects, has disposition, and has a nurturance on our belief system, which is the fundamental awareness of what we are and who we are and why we choose to be that. So these contrast didn't work well in my favor at that level of perception because I kicked and screamed. And life.
Did you kick and scream, or were you just quite young and navigating
Oh no, I kicked and screamed.
Well, we're
Why
Sagittarius.
is it intrigued?
Just
I'm a Sagittarius fire sign, and the idea of spontaneity and adventure excites me, thrills me, and overwhelms me, which means it's the right thing. It's all the right things. Having an environment that was unsupportive of the same energy made me very aware of that very early, and protective and submissive to my own energy, to my own understanding of what I can achieve and the impact and influence I can have through the value of my integrity and my inner light. So I didn't have an inner light. And that inner light that did show up, like a lot of people who will relate to this, was very distorted. Very galvanized, and very resonant with the conditioning of where I place myself in this societal playground. There's a lot of great people that quote quotes through their books, through affirmations, and through their talks. And they all announce to the same kind of theme, that you are a byproduct of your environment, meaning that you are connected to something external that you have an fluctuating impact on unconditionally, internally. And how we figure that out, there's no rule book for that. There's no school for that. And there's definitely no pathway that says, here we are, come join us. Now, those pathways do exist, but you get to those pathways at a later point in life, so it appears. By that time, most of us have had 15, 20 years, 25 years of this egoism, individualization of building up our preset, our facets, and our impressions that we show up with. So we do people please. We do self-sabotage, and we do self-sacrifice. Not because we're bad people, but because society and the way we thrive and strive as a community was built upon these very, very ancestral metrics of coming forward and looking after yourself, so that you didn't arrive at a situation, an experience, or a location where you were faced with the possibility of being alone, being ostracized, and being without. So community is everything, and I didn't have that growing up. Because of that self-plex, it allowed me to go more internal, and it actually fed my ego system, thinking that I was the only thing that mattered. I was the only one here, and it was I. I didn't really understand the concept of we, because we allowed me to think that I could be entangled in something that may have an effect on me, that may cause me to judge myself further. So I would actually withdraw from life experience for this reason. So reading and absorbing information for myself online was my go-to for many years. But mostly I found myself being inhabitant in the present moment. So as a child, I kicked soccer balls, I climbed trees, I played with friends in the street, and I rode bikes and scooters. And I made up imaginations in worlds that still exist today.
Well, of course they do, because everything we imagine exists somewhere in the multiverse. We have this conversation all the time because that's a part of my deepest core resonance, that everything is possible, does exist somewhere, and you have the capacity to perceive it as a human if you choose. I don't know the specific mechanisms yet for all of that. I'm still navigating that journey. You do have a lot of very poetic and kind ways to say that you had a rough upbringing. So that you have I do appreciate the energy that you have of gentleness and gratitude that comes through, even though you did have a story that has been, I don't want to say troubled, that's not the way to say it. There's a lot of humans in this world who experience difficult backgrounds. And it is something that we understand that we do choose to sort of place ourselves into this human game in spaces for a reason. And it's something that I think that perspective we have, it's something that allows us to have forgiveness for circumstances, for situations, for people, knowing that we came here to experience and expand and grow as the energy signatures we are. So, in that vein, are you willing to be vulnerable and share some of your life story? I know it's delicate for you to share what you have experienced, but I do believe it to be very valuable. And I think a lot of people will resonate with the sort of life that you have experienced and the things that you have had to overcome and find perspective on that allows things that we humans call forgiveness and allows you peace of mind and peace of heart. So, if we can start with, because we did have this conversation a bit earlier, you kind of went from 1 to 6 is where you started. And we know that that age, 1 to 6 or 1 to 7, is some of the most impactful on us as humans, our personality, and how we navigate and function through this human experience. Are you willing to start from there?
Thank you, Haleigh, for that very delicately woven question. I take great pride and great honor and great reverence in my sensitivity that I have found in this world through my dedication to the spirit and the light form that I am. So to ground this in further, I would love to take our audience and fellow followers here today with us through the life of Murray from the age of 6 up to 6 and up to 20. Growing up in a family of 3, Murray was a middle child with a sibling considerably older than I and a sibling younger by a few years. I enjoyed the disposition of being what we call the middle child. The contrast of experience that was available to me there was a lot. And it was really, really, really confronting. Having a father who was a great Australian provider, he built a backbone in the industry of transportation, delivering service goods from one place to another, to receive a residual income of support to provide a foundation for those that he cared for and loved, being I, my siblings, and my mum. Those times were very difficult for a lot of Australians, specifically drivers being away for long, lengthy periods of time, having to sacrifice that time and space with their children for that external resource. That's okay, but that does add up. And we know that worldwide. So as a child, I had the gift of experiencing alcoholism and abuse at a considerably high level. My father was an incredible provider, first and foremost. My father was an incredible man, doing the best that he can and could with everything that he knew and understood. My mum's about 5 foot, and she's a little Maltese Italian, offset. My mum comes with this deep empathic energy to this world, unlike anything else. And her ability to transmute large portions of energy and have that optimistic viewpoint really was a great aspectal experience for me, because I watched a lot of anger and a lot of what we consider to be big energy that's not easily processable or transmutable and very overwhelming, creating anxiety, stress, and fear. I watched a lot of that get transmuted through my mum, who was fundamentally there processing in real time and converting that in ways to make that come out more unimpactful or less intense from its severity as the way it was being angulated out. Again, incredible, doing the best that she could with all that she knew. My mum was an amazing mum, like any mum in the world. She cared for her children and served that as her life purpose. It gave me a very, very middle class childhood for everyone to relate to. I didn't have the best of everything, but I had the best of what I had. I didn't go without. I was given. And I had the means to be supported if I could get there. But I didn't always have that, as you're aware. So spending a lot of time by myself isolated me from this group of people who were there to help me and teach me lessons. And I didn't feel safe with them. And I struggled with that for so long and accepting that within myself. Not knowing anything about spirituality, about consciousness, and about who I was set to become. It was just a world of hurt and misunderstanding. I had friends and I had relationships, but they could only serve me so far. Empathy is a great tool and a great gift, and some of us have embodied here to experience that. It also has an opposing duality, which can feel heavier than it needs to be and feel more personal than it actually is. And because of that experience of being abused as a child and taking beatings on behalf of my mum and my sister, it made me a very unique being at the age of 13, 14. With a lot of life questions unanswered and a lot of confusion, I spent that next 2 years preparing myself for the greatest journey of my life, where I embarked on becoming an Australian soldier. I chose this path because I needed to give myself something, a care package of understanding, tools, acceptance, experience, what we come here for, the things that I were not receiving from the very location and people that I was surrounded with. This was the very first time that I experienced courage, confidence, and the ability to make a decision for myself. The journey with the military was of ease, peace, and fun, until I was asked, demanded, to go overseas. That is when I self-sabotaged, and I found myself moving away from my commitment to something that I no longer aligned with, and looking for ways to retreat, to return to being a human being. I had experienced quite a lot of mates not returning, so I had a greater fear for my own well-being. And when that was placed over myself, that was my accumulated effort coming to a standstill in that experience. And that was not easy to leave and to resign and to remove myself from something that I had placed myself in with such depth, such commitment, and such severity. It was a state of survival for me to be there. And once I had received what I needed and I could no longer go any further, I left the military. I spent many years from that point, Haleigh, just roaming around. Like most humans, just floating from job to job, relationship to relationship, experience to experience, moment to moment. Not really anchored into anything, not really understanding or using a greater sense of diligence to create any sort of pathway forward or future. And it was at this point I realized I don't have imagination and I don't know how to use it. That became concerning for me, as I was watching a lot of people around me use that imagination to create the life that they desired. I didn't feel confident to do that. And I didn't feel safe to do that within myself. So I opted for the different option, the more 3D base, that real based in one.
You're grounded here in the world of Caesar, as Neville Goddard would say. Yes.
So man's got to do what man's got to do. And I use motivation and momentum as my manifesting tool, like a lot of people on this plane. And it's hard that way. And it's long. It's fun, but it's long and it's hard. There is compounded effort and there's experience, and some of it gets shared and some of it gets diluted. Some of it just gets kept forever and it never gets reinvested into this world. That is a shame. This allowed me to see the world differently from this point and start making decisions for myself that weren't in line with the system that I'd always served. This is where I found myself self-medicating with marijuana and becoming a healer, a recognized person who could stand behind something of service and product with an intention of delivering without receiving. Well, obviously there's a money aspect resource, but without receiving more than was needed in that moment. I found something that I could enjoy, that I could anchor into. And so I became a drug dealer.
Well, I would like to say shaman. I think healer, and you would be a shaman in other time, space, pie slices where the law
I
didn't
agree.
think they had
Yeah.
so much rights over people's sovereignty and their choices of access to plant medicines that humans have freely used for millennia. We have some, technological advancements in society, of course, but we have gone backwards in human freedoms, and I think that's maybe part of the journey of remembrance that you have been on. But do please continue. I know there's a lot more to unpack here, and I already have a lot of questions to dig deeper. I know I do. But here we
I
are in this
anticipate.
space where the world would call you sort of like a cannabis Breaking Bad character, even though that's not necessarily accurate to what your intentions were. But
So yeah, going back to that, I had a lot of fear and a lot of judgment upon myself at that point in my life, and a lot of fear and a lot of judgment towards the system, like everyone else, and wanting to oppose that and break free of that. So being a plant medicine healer and providing that to people in my community really aligned with my spirit and my soul. Being a drug dealer really aligned with society's spirit and soul.
mm-hmm.
And I found my way to blend into that niche through my experience that I had accrued of being in the military and being in guise as a young child, navigating my environments and my emotions. Through this endeavor, I made great friendships, experienced fun, led a life of independent financial freedom, and enjoyed service. Along the way, I found out many things about myself and let go of other things about myself. And I also acquired new things about myself that I didn't like. Being in that industry and being as sensitive as I have explained that I was, I had a really deeply conditioned heart center, which allowed me to put on a mask, a facade, and a embodiment of being stronger than I needed to be, and being more powerful than I actually was required to be, for the sake of protecting my investment, my friends, and myself, more importantly. The journey gave me a great deal of insight. That journey also landed me in jail.
If I can interject here, I do want to give you space to share this story. I do believe that it's valuable. Up to this point, right, in your life, you have, again, the perspective you have now in your very poetic way with words. You do have an ability to communicate gratitude for the journey, despite it being something that a lot of people might automatically judge in certain ways, automatically perceive to be negative and sort of, I don't want to say hopeless, but I mean there's a certain amount of, well, people expect that if you come from a space or a again difficult upbringing where you do experience that abuse, that you become someone who might turn around and be that to others. But you didn't. You chose to go into service to others, into the military. And here again, you leave that service because it no longer aligns, right? And you recognize the sort of system connectivity of it. And you want to step outside that system to be of service. And then the system steps in again to interrupt your capacity to be of service in your highest ways, in your highest joyful ways and best capacities. And society teaches us to judge that. Society teaches us to label people very negatively immediately on just that you have been to jail. And I think there are probably a lot of people who have also experienced some of the things that you did experience in the military, the kind of PTSD that is generated in the, as much as there's community, and that is what you go to look for when you come from the kind of lack of connectivity or community or maybe camaraderie, friendship, brotherhood, compassion, right? That you as a sensitive person wanted in your household environment but didn't have. You went to the first place that society sort of offered an opportunity for you to try to find something else. That also is a part of the system, didn't quite have the right energy, kept you in that survival mode, scarcity, conformity, and your spirit still knows you don't belong there. So when you come out of that and you're trying to find yourself and then find something that helps you, assists you in your own post-traumatic from childhood and from the military experiences and alleviating that to give you space to find your core energy signature again from a different place. You're then placed in a situation where you are stripped of all of your freedom and your capacity to explore that. And a lot of people would, again, from the outside judge that, and from the inside judge themselves and not come back from that kind of a thing. So you, from that point in your journey, I know you learned a lot from that experience where not everyone would give themselves through their spirit the opportunity to take lessons from that, but you did. So if we can pick up from there with just a little bit of that kind of recap and a little bit of just love bubbles to you, Marie Angel, for having the perspective you do to be able to speak, again, gently and appreciatively of your journey, even though most humans would have certain labels of it that would not show appreciation and gratitude. As a highly sensitive person, being in a place that is the societal and institutional version of you've been bad and you need to be punished, that we could go into a whole other podcast conversation about whether or not that's actually useful to society, but carry on from there.
Unlike any experience I have ever embarked upon. Definitely. You know, when we're being in the state of individuality, survival, there's a greater sense, a greater sense of perception that we're in control. And we'll do anything to validate and protect that. I reached that point in that journey, which allowed me to cross over with two amazing human beings who just happened to be police officers doing their job that they came here to do in that moment. After a great, fun conversation, I found myself on the way back to a jail cell. Not fun at all. I asked myself in those very peculiar moments, why am I here? And my greater understanding in that point of frustration, overwhelm, and complete self-judgment was that this was a turning point. Now, I didn't understand that or process that because I was kicking and screaming since a child. So you can imagine how much I'm kicking and screaming in the back of this wagon. But that journey took me to a facility, a location that allowed me to be surrounded by people, which I had been avoiding for a long time. Avoiding human connection, and what that has to offer to someone. I can recall the first month of that time in jail being so loud in my head and in my heart. I can recall the experience of giving up beginning to arrive. I was overwhelmed, misunderstood by the world and by myself, and now unprotected. Everybody survives jail, Haleigh. Everybody. Somehow I managed to thrive through jail. I found my feet. And I found my voice. At first, it came through states of survival, and those states of survival advanced into states of being, with awareness, using conscious energy to make decisions through actions and thoughts that would perpetuate me forward to allow me to experience connectivity safely through my sensitivity that I had not developed in this world. First 3 months of jail, I got into 4 fights, not by my own means. I had my jaw dislocated by a 176 kilo islander who mistaked some energy and acted upon that. I wasn't in a place to defend myself, and I had to experience that for what it was and overcome that state of energy, knowing that my immediate response and reaction would be far more detrimental to my greater wealth, my health and wealth. I'm not a gang member, and I'm not a fighter. So being in a caged environment with greater human beings who have accepted that that is their personality and their stance made that a very, very, very vibrationally conflicting time. Sharing cells with humans who partaked in different activities that I didn't align with made me vulnerable and scared for my immediate safety. So my protections went up, my awareness grew, and I became more conscious. And this was a gift. I didn't see it at that point in time, but by around 6 months, I had developed a relationship with myself one that I could be aware of. I used that as best as I could to my advantage to keep myself preoccupied and busy so that I didn't get caught up in the things that those environments offer as experiences. This gave me the opposition of free will and choice and remembering what that felt like. I had forgotten, because I had made so many unconscious choices based on fear, that I was now making choices that served my greatest good in the next moment, not just my survival. What did I really want to feel? So I started praying. I started running, doing exercise, and building out a routine and a structure like the military and those tools had provided me to keep myself grounded and present. I led by example through that. And I expanded into that to the best of my ability and understanding. And that gave me the ability, the freedom, and the self-love to thrive through that experience. It was a very difficult experience, and it takes its toll on any level of the human mind, body, and soul. But we are here for an experience. And having that awareness served me, as I hope it can serve you. The other side of jail, after 11 months, things got real basic. I had a blueprint of tools, ways of being, and experiences that I could lean back into that landed me there, or I could and start again. So for the first 6 months of post incarnation, I spent a lot of time on myself, journaling, exercising, eating better food, being more responsive to my environment, and trying to show up and be a better human being. That is where my journey really took its turn. I found myself getting back into local transportation, getting a local job, and finding a residual income to create a flow of stream. I felt good. I felt back in a system. Safe. Feelings that I had felt before that I was very familiar with, but not at bay with. So one day I was driving, doing my job as a truck driver at that point in time, and I was met with a very unique experience of light. That light changed my life. That light allowed me to know that everything that I had just overcome was in preparation for what was yet to be. This was the beginning of my return to the soul, to the origins of who and what I am.
Again, you have such a very grounded and peaceful way of communicating these things, but you have obviously had to cultivate that. That wasn't taught to you in any of the experiences you had, in any of the environments you found yourself in. And it's a testament to the, dare I say, badassery of your soul that you decided to incarnate into a blueprint and an experience that would take you through these really very intense experiences as a very sensitive soul and as a very, I would say, determined to be conscious, aware, and awakened in this particular human incarnation at this time. Again, you have such a free will chosen unconditional love for your experience in a world that is full of people who would automatically sort of assume, well, how can I come back from something like that? And why would you expect me to? And we've had these conversations before. Of course, you don't have to. Every experience is valid. Every path is valid. If in this lifetime, in this experience, you choose to experience what it is not to ascend from that kind of a background, that is absolutely valid. There's no, you don't get a cookie in the afterlife for getting over the things, right? Or a medal or a trophy. But the experience in this singular lifetime, this linear time space, right, that we perceive, the experience of what I sort of consider to be dying before your death, right? Having a life review before you actually exit this physical body, this avatar, and transition back to the primordial whateverness from whence we came. You picked a really hard bunch of levels to surpass. And you still have come to a place where you do have a lot of love and appreciation for everything you've experienced, for the people you've interacted with, for where you are now, and even for the unknown and the uncertainty of where we do find ourselves now. Maybe not uncertainty, because we do know of the good things we can co-create because we choose it. And maybe that's something you can kind of get into now just a little bit. I mean, it is remarkable to me and everyone who meets you that you do have such a joyful disposition for life. Many would say despite the contrast you have experienced, and you would probably say because of it. Both of them are correct. So maybe talk about that just a little bit in where you are now when it comes to sort of facing the adventure that life is and the unknown that you're now in, because you're ready to, again, change chapters and catapult yourself forward, even if you don't necessarily know where you might land specifically, but have the capacity to hold a vision and a frequency because you have had to train yourself to.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd just love to just take a bungee jump and a skip and a hop with you right into this. This is my favorite part of this segment as we wind up and get into the higher aspects of the energy. Like all things in life, we work in spirals. And just like this conversation today and my story, we started at the bottom and we come up. That understanding to humanity through our lens of experience is a rewarding feeling. And it's inspirational and aspirational on a community level. So that is why I'm here today. The reason that I'm here is because of that journey, that last 5 years, and what that showed to me through the contrast of what I expressed to you, of what I've experienced in this world as a human being Murray, and how that allowed me to transmute and shift my perception to a place of awareness, self-awareness, that became a greater awareness, that now serves me as a level of mastery that I experience through my empathy. For anyone who has been on, quote unquote, a spiritual journey, whew, made everything else look easy.
It's a trendy thing, right? Like, listen, spirituality is on trend right now. We know that it is. And there's a lot of folks out there who are trying to tell people about the journey and, oh, life before this was crazy, but now that I'm in it, it's even crazier. But you've got some credentials here, I think we've shown, when it comes to life being crazy, pre-spiritual awakening, pre-remembrance of self, and now being on the journey of remembrance of self. It's not an easy thing, we know, to go through the nightmare land of the shadows that we accumulate in this human experience and come out the other side of it being able to love humanity and love ourselves and love what we've been through and love what we know can be ahead for us. So talk to us about your spiritual journey, you obviously do shadow work, you got into Reiki. So when did you sort of start that from the spiritual awakening?
Yeah, so after about a year of settling into this new light of consciousness, expanding in my field and becoming aware of it, I realized very quickly that different parts of my body, my vessel, were responding to me based on how I felt and thought and acted. And as I honed my consciousness towards that, my awareness grew. And that is where I learned that within each of us is a light body system. And that light body system comprises and is built upon chakras. Chakras are energetic centers that are in the form of a cone-like effect that extend from the front and the back of the body in equal points, up and down the spine. There is a lot of great talk about these particular centers, what they do, why they're here, how they work, and what they look like. I know what they feel like, and that's my truth. After many years of feeling my way through this experience, consciously becoming more aware, it allowed me to take the energy of experience that I experienced through every different layer of my life, from my father to my mum, to my own sexual abuse, to my misguided societal approaches, to my self-judgment, and to my judgment of everything before me, to my sabotage, and to my agreement to not experience because I was judging myself and holding on to pain and hurt that I didn't know how to process through these centers. I found a way to transmute every single one of these last things in me. I spent a year meditating all the time, not asking the world for an answer, seeking that within myself and bringing that back out into this reality and watching that change before my very eyes and using that result-driven base as a measurement and a system to produce new manifestations and new realizations of experience that other version of me didn't have the metric for. I only knew momentum back then. Now I'm working with the higher aspect of frequency and wavelengths, intention and empathy. And when these tools and these gifts are paired with each other, perception evolves. So to ground that in for everyone listening today, my journey along the spiritual path, I thought it was just like everything. We just wake up and we just get this big happy buzz and we stay there. I then realized that everything that we go through is perpetually placed there by us, for us, to serve us. And that's where I found myself really understanding the fundamental aspect of leadership for the first time. I realized that I was learning things that this world was preparing to learn itself. And so my journey has allowed me to take those steps to arrive at a location where I do now present here as I am, embodied and eternally grounded and rooted in this present moment. It is through the remembrance of the soul that I get to share this gift today after many years of cultivating this light, expanding this awareness, and arriving consciously with love. It has truly, truly, truly taken me to a new place. that has given me the greatest gift. And if I could ever share that with anyone today to take home, it would just be this. This planet, this experience is a once and a lifetime opportunity. We can whinge, we can cry over spilt milk, and we can let water not roll off a duck's back. You can hang on to your resources, you can accumulate your ego, and you can remind yourself that you will never take it with you. But what truly stands and will always stand is that you are here having an experience. And the sooner that you remind yourself of that and become more aware of that, the quicker you will consciously arrive home at the soul, which is what we are, which is what I am, and which is what I'm here to tell you today. We are spaces of unconditional light. That gift is ours alone. However you choose to find to share that is your purpose. There have been many great books and quotes handed to us collectively, time and time again. But the only real truth and the only real thought that matters is the one that's in your heart now. Because now is the gift, and it is all you ever truly have. Every level of truth is an experience and is valid, because we are all perceiving at the same time now. We are all reporting from the field, collectively, individually, with the source of love that has spent, invested, and created an opportunity where we get to experience each other, not in separation, but in physicality. Through the metrics of time, space, and motion, we get to have fun, create, and remember. These are your gifts. Welcome to Earth 2.0. This is what it looks like to move forward. Finding like-minded communities, wholehearted, reverent people, and embodied souls to ascend this next frequency of what we have all chosen collectively to go with, to have our next experience. And that is why I am Murray Angel. I am here at a very specific time with a very specific purpose. And it has taken me, my journey, time, space, emotion, and experience to arrive here. And it brings me the deepest joy to be here with you all, sharing and loving through being and becoming. Thank you for being here with me and with Haleigh, and for listening to my story today. It took me a while to arrive here. My intention is very clear. May you experience what you wish to receive. Because after all, it's really all just a game for all of us to experience. And when you take the seriousness of everything that I've shared here today, and you take that away and you pair it against the truth of what we feel, this really is a gift. And I would love for you all to remember that and embrace that. I am Murray Angel, and I'm very grateful to be here with you all. Thank you for connecting, tuning in, and listening to me today.
Murray Angel, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and for sharing so much light and love with everyone. Not in the trendy sense and not in the lip service way that many spiritual, shall we say, spaces tend to, but in the very authentic, genuinely loving way that only you can do. I think it is so important for everyone to see and hear your story because it demonstrates that we all have this capacity to be beautifully unique, to be bold and powerfully ourselves, whatever our story is, that we all have that divine light to remember. And I know that you have a little, before we go, you've got a plaque with you wanted to share with everybody. I know you've said everything so beautifully, Murray Angel. This is why I have to be the sort of like comic relief to the straight man, right? Like this is where my part comes in. I got to
You're
bring
the
out that
person
inner child. I'm the personality hire because I can't follow an act like that with anything more profound. That's entirely and wholly your space, and I'm so
but the
glad you
space that you
occupy
hold
it.
and the frequency that you reverberate allows for such reverence to be held. And because of that, I am very grateful.
Well, thank you, Murray Angel. And we're also grateful for the bright light that you are. Do you want to share with everybody the plaque that you have as a nice little, again, you wrapped it up so beautifully, but we'll go ahead and let you share your quote with everyone that you'd like to.
Resilience, courage, fortitude. I've come to understand that they reside in both sides of this duality experience, the unconscious and the conscious. They help us to find words, labels, and relatives that we place upon ourselves that can become limitations. So for everybody, I have a sign that I want to share that has been really personal to me for some years now, that helped me overcome many other areas of my life while stepping more into who I've become. And it's this. It says, whenever you find yourself doubting how far you can go, just remember how far you have come. Remember everything you have faced and all the battles you have won. All the fears that you had to overcome.
You had to overcome a lot of fears to be courageous enough to join me for a podcast and put yourself out into the world, which again, thank you, Marie Angel. I do so appreciate your willingness to share your story. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who will resonate and will be inspired. Not because you have 3 yachts or, that you're not the sort of ruler of the world in the way that the 3D world believes that marks having arrived, but because you arrive in the present moment as your authentic self with all of the experiences that you have had, so abundantly appreciating all of those experiences for the humanness that they were. And I think it's a beautiful thing the way that you are able to look back on what a lot of people would look back on as something to overcome in the sense of destroying it so that you can move on. But looking back and having a deep reverence and love for the life you've had, the people that you have interacted with and co-created with. And I do want to say thank you again to you for sharing and for your beautiful perspective and for the loving open heart that you continue to share with the world. I think there's a lot more people like you, like us, who are ready to come forward and to be seen, to be heard, and to create the connection that we came here to experience and have long misunderstood this physical experience to be one of separation, as you so beautifully put it. And I'm excited for us to see what's next and see what is the next new chapter for Marie Angel. And I can't wait to be able to hold space and create a container to share that. I find it so exciting. Thank you, Marie Angel, for being here with me.
Oh, thank you so much, Haleigh. It's been such a pleasure to be here with you today, and I look forward to coming back and experiencing the effects of the Franki Podcast Network once again in the future. I've had such a treat being here, and I feel so embodied sharing this message of mine, and I hope that it's received and felt by many. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And everyone, if you would like to support more content from Marie Angel and my good self, there's a donation link in the bottom. You can go ahead and give us a little tip if you feel generous. If you don't, we love you just for being here anyway. Thank you so very much, everyone, for joining us. Go ahead and do the like, share, subscribe things. Get us up in the comments. And you know what? Join us for some Muzzles and H-Spec episodes that we will have coming up where you can receive love bubbles directly from Marie Angel and myself, because we do really genuinely love every single one of you and this human experience that we get to share and co-create together. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And Marie Angel, thank you so much for sharing your story and for being willing to experience it as this human that you are.
I'm so grateful to be here with you all. I'll see you again soon. Take care for now.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon.